Jeremy, as I was saying, 20 years ago since you won the US Open. Now, some people, when you say things like that to them, say, oh, it only seems like yesterday, but it's not always the case. Does it feel like it was a long time ago, or are the memories still very, very fresh?
I think they're pretty active, those memories. I mean, this week Matchroom showed the last rack when I won it, which was always nice, and I think it was a heck of an out to win it, and I'm pretty proud of that. But yeah, kind of get both, I think, at times. It's been a while, and I sure miss that arena, and certainly my favorite tournament in the world.
Of course, you'll be very much at the heart of the action in the Mosconi Cup, captaining the American team again in a couple of months' time, and that's something else that I know we're going to be talking about throughout the week. That man will be there once again, Francisco Sanchez Ruiz. He's already got his place locked up on the European team. And the other man we saw just a few moments ago, there he is again, John Webber. And this is a classic case of one of those matches we always get in the early rounds of these big events. It's the big names who are used to being out there under all the focus of attention against players who are probably vastly experienced and steeped in the game, but at a totally different level today. And the big question always is how they're going to adjust to these circumstances.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. You know, the beauty of the U.S. Open is a certain amount of the field can enter and maybe playing the biggest event they've ever even dreamed about playing in, and playing the greatest players, and FSR to kick it off here, our defending champion. I think FSR, it's a good spot for him. Bring back some great memories. You know, to be fair, he struggled at times here of late, and you know, he wants to get on par and take another stab at another green jacket. See an opening lag that looks like it's going to be pretty close. I think Webber is taking it. This isn't a race to 9 early, and then the races will be adjusted as the event moves on.
Just about ready to go, and I think we can always tell a lot early on when someone is playing in a situation that they're not used to. You see them miss an easy ball and it throws them for the rest of the match, but then there are players who settle in very, very quickly, so we'll see which category John Webber falls into. Not quite sure what the weight is in getting started. He looks a bit nervous, to be fair, Jeremy.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like it's maybe a little hard to swallow for Mr. Webber at the moment, but, you know, you just do your best to turn the brain off, and, you know, whether you're starting out good, you don't want to think about it and think, oh, man, I'm playing pretty well, things are going nice, or whether you start off a little shaky, either way, and that's not the start he wanted. Surrendering the cue ball to FSR.
Yeah, and in a good position as well.
Things are going nice. Or whether you start off a little shaky, either way.
It's always the case, of course, when you're going in as a massive underdog. Something might just fall your way through pure luck at the start. You might get a golden break. Your far more celebrated opponent might scratch and gives you a little something to build on. But it's gone the other way here. And this is Francisco Sanchez Ruiz, 31 years of age, defending champion, reigning world champion, world number 1.
Yeah, nice opener there, coming between the 5 and 9, and real natural now on the 2 to the 3. And for the most part, you know, these players know when they're a huge favorite. But for the most part, they won't really try to change a whole lot. They want to get in that game mode because they know matches as they come along will get more difficult. Now, one thing I've noticed from yesterday's practice, and just some comments from the players, the tables, of course, on the World 9-Ball Tour, never easy, but maybe the most difficult we've seen all year here at the U.S. Open. That's a familiar face we're used to from FSR, kind of sizing things up.
Yeah, he's been on a great roll for about 18 months or so. There have been times when you've looked at him and thought, for a run of several matches in a row. This is about as well as it's possible to play the game. What really comes into my head is the Premier League in Leicester back in the spring. He had recently won the World Championship, and yes, it's shorter matches and not quite the prestige of an event like this, but I remember he had a run of about 4 or 5 matches in the middle of that event where you just thought, this is as close to perfection as anyone can get.
Yeah, and I think he really just kind of, started off a little slow because of the travel commitments, and him staying in the events so long. He just barely got to that Premier League right before it started.
Yeah, that was continuing that great run he's had. Not been quite so good in the last few months, but still had quarter-finals in the UK Open and the European Open, so certainly no reason to believe his form has deserted him after everything he's achieved in the last year and a half or so. Well, this is a harsh lesson, Jeremy, in the opening rack. John Webber had the break, scratched from it, and then sat down to watch a clinical exhibition from the world champion. Francisco Sanchez Ruiz very swiftly leads John Webber 1-0. I can tell you there's been a technical issue. I believe it's some sort of power cut, so a number of the matches haven't actually been able to get started yet. We'll keep you posted on how that develops. They are underway on table 2. Carlo Biado, the 2021 champion, at the table. A few balls away from taking the opener against Abdullah Al-Shamari, who's a player I know you rate quite highly, Jeremy.
Yeah, a very difficult player, and a player that knocks the ball in really well. Seems to always play his best as an underdog, which he's not an underdog to over half this field. So Carlo's got to pay attention there in that opening match. And I think FSR, it's easy to get a little cloudy when it's looking at someone's, kind of how they've been playing and the results. And the difference I see with FSR in the last few months, or maybe even 6 months really, is he's having to grind matches out more. He's not really putting those packages together to kind of how they've been playing, the results. And the difference I see, that's a bad thing. It's just a little with FSR in the last few months, or maybe even 6 months previously.
So the dry break allows Webber to the table, but it hasn't been kind to him in terms of throwing up any sort of opportunity.
Yeah, trying to get the one past the 8 there, and with kind of an ugly 5-7 on the bottom of your screen, we may see a 3-9 combo to end game 2 here with just a few shots.
Yeah, if you're not going to get that big stroke of luck early on, what you do want in Webber's situations is even just one nice easy pot to settle you into the match. You don't want to come to the table and find yourself having to play a safety when you feel you're not really involved in the contest yet, and it hasn't gone well for him.
Yeah, some of these matches, of course, we'll mention a foregone conclusion kind of thing, but 9 ball's a funny game, so players can get going. And with the tougher equipment, the tougher break rule that we play under now, and here's that 3-9 combo I was talking about. Looks like it sets up real nice and should get a 2-0 lead, but sometimes the players can get a little sideways, start to miss a few balls, and bring a guy like Webber into the match.
Yeah, and there's time for that to happen, but so far things could not have gone any worse for John Webber, and Francisco Sanchez Ruiz has raced away into a 2-0 lead. Whenever someone has a big breakthrough and wins an event of this stature for the first time, there's often a match you look back on during the week and say, oh, that was a close run thing, he survived it and went on to win the title. In FSR's case, almost every match was like that on his way to winning this last year. So many close finishes. Wu Kunlin was a rack away from knocking him out as early as the last 32. Kazakis had the lead at 8-7 against him in the quarterfinals before FSR turned it round for a 10-8 win. And then the big comeback from Carlo Biado, 10-6 down to take it hill in the semis. Sanchez Ruiz eventually getting through, and then another close one, 13-10 in the final against Max Lechner.
Yeah, and you just expect that at the U.S. Open. We had a great ranking event this last week at Jason Shaw's pool room in Connecticut. And, you know, some of the matches, the players just were in stroke, playing so great. You know, that some of the match scores were a little sideways at times, but I don't expect that here at the U.S. Open, not one bit.
Yeah, Moritz Neuhausen claiming his first World 9-Ball Tour title there. Oh, well, just when John Webber might have thought this match can't get any more unkind for me, that happens. Francisco Sanchez Ruiz, an early combination in rack 2, and a golden break at the start of 9-Ball Tour title there. We thought this might be one-sided,
well,
but this
just
is taking
when
things to a new level.
John Webber.
Yeah, Mr. Webber with a scratch on the break in the opening. Not much of a shot in game 2. No shot in game 3. And a quick 3-0 lead for FSR.
Carlo Beato did win that opener against Abdullah Al-Shamari, and he's in play with a chance to go 2-0 up there. Wen Antoine has won the first against Abdullah Al-Katan. Omar Al-Shaheen, World Championship runner-up a couple of years ago, has lost the first against Robert Piersa of the United States. Back to this.
Oh, the balls are breaking nice. Lots of balls going in, it seems like. A nice shot on the one, so should extend that lead.
First against Robert
in the position to.
Must be really exciting for a player like Webber when the draw for the US Open comes out and you're up against the defending champion in the opening match, and you think it's going to be a wonderful experience, and it may yet be for John Webber. But then you're actually out there and you realise this is the reality of facing these top players, and I'm sure Sanchez Ruiz would acknowledge, as well as playing well, he's had a bit of good fortune to go with it to help him into this position.
Yeah, and a player like Webber probably anticipating drawing one of the top seeds, of course, one of the top 64 anyway. So, I mean, if you're going to take on the best, that's one of the reasons a player like Webber came to the event, get some of that experience and memories. Why not take on number 1? Okay, I don't think he draws all the way down here. He could draw below the 8-9, could get to the center and just take the cut. Hard to argue either one. Oh, he did draw all the way down. The angle was easy. Not really going towards the corner with the cue ball or the 8-9. And FSR seems in very good control. And these types of matches you want to lean on, you want to get the most out of. That doesn't mean just, you know, go for crazy shots or anything like that. You really want to build that routine, start to get in that rhythm. You have to go a bit. And you can see the very best, right? That no matter their opponent, no matter if they're a big favorite, first match of the event, they do not take shots off. Putting all the effort into this 8-ball, trying to come 3 rails for the 9. I think he hit a little thick to the pocket, may have to travel a bit.
So still just a glimmer of hope for Webber. But looking at it from there, I think he'll be backing him for this all day long. This for 4-0 then. And the US Open is an event that just goes back too far and has involved too many matches for us to have a definitive record in terms of what's been the shortest match in the event's history. But if it keeps going like this may well be it. In no time at all, it's 4-0. And all Webber has done so far is scratch off a break and play misjudged safety.
Yeah, not a whole lot wrong for him so far, and even more so for FSR.
Great to see Corey Jewell in the field, and he's lost the opener against Eric Roberts. Ko Ping Chung has won the first against British player Lawrence Thomason. Carlo Beato is now 2-0 up on Abdullah Al-Shamari. Dennis Grabber level with American Keegan Badur at 1-1. And Mika Immonen, former winner of this title, back-to-back in fact, level with David Johnson at 1 apiece. 4-0 here.
FSR showing us that break that really was a leader to all those titles in probably about a 16th month span. And speaking of Corey Deuel, good to see him out. Really haven't seen him play hardly any the entire year, and a former champion, 2001 I believe it was. And he's got his hands full with a young Eric Roberts that is a very good player and a guy that really steps it up when he's a little underdog. All right, going for the jump here, no rollout. A great shot, and he could see a big reward with that jump with the 3 hanging just in case he knocks it in.
That 2001 title for Corey Deuel, he beat Mika Immonen 11-0 in the final. And I mentioned Immonen there, won this title back-to-back, 2008 and 9. Nick Varner won 2 in a row as well, so did Darren Appleton. And Shane Van Bonen, of course, 3 in a row. But since he completed that in 2014, nobody has gone back-to-back. That's what Sanchez Ruiz is trying to do this week. Hasn't been played every year since then, of course. We missed a year because of COVID, and another year because there was a change of ownership of the event, shall we say, and that led to a change of dates. But it's still been a while since anyone has successfully defended this.
Yeah, I was there for those 2 events that Mika won, and it's pretty incredible. Went undefeated the first year, and then the second year lost his first match to a great player, Chris Bartram Hill, and fought his way all the way through the one-loss side to come back and win the event again.
Yeah, Immonen still a very capable player, even in his 50s now. We saw that at the Turning Stone, where he had that great run there just a few weeks back.
Yeah, and even the last year and a half when he was trying to really get back into it, get his game back. Of course, Mika, he wants results, but he knows he's got to be patient, trying to get, back in form. But he's shown a lot of form. It's just little things that have gotten away. Of course, that famous match against SVB last year at the World 9 Ball Championships, when he had that huge lead and a couple things got away. Of course, SVB doing some great things and then went on to win the title.
So John Webber, for the 3rd rack in a row, is not going to get to the table if FSR can complete the formalities here.
Yeah, and the one thing, you expect to get is some time at the table, and it just hasn't been there for Webber.
And that is why Francisco Sanchez Ruiz now leads by 5 racks to 0. Alex Kazakis, off to a nice start against American Jacob Watson, 2-0. All the matches getting underway now. I told you there was a technical issue. I believe it was a power cut, but that's all been resolved now. Khalid Al-Ghamdi, highly rated young Saudi player, has won the first against Christoph Neumeier of the United States. Carlo Biado now with a 3-0 advantage against Abdullah Al-Shamari. Konrad Yusashin of Poland has won the first rack against Elvis Rodriguez. There's a name you won't forget.
Yeah, Kazakis has got a very good opponent, and a U.S. amateur champion in Jacob Watson from the East Texas. Very, very good player. Now, FSR had some, I think a little bit of health issues, right? He had to pull out of some of the events that were kind of the warm-ups into the U.S. Open.
Well, looks to be in full health now and absolutely flying here. 5-0.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the break shot was a big part of that success he's had. And, not the greatest of shots here on the blue, too, but so far, the break has looked very good. One golden break, couple breaking runs. I think we're going to see Webber get to the table here in this rack. A little off angle here on the 2. Can't really do much with the cue ball near the rail. Probably just chops on his left side of the 2. Okay, he's going to elevate. And This is where you don't want to like shoot a shot you're not going to shoot against a little bit better player or a little different match. You want to get a little feel for the table on some safeties, kind of rolling the ball at times. Could go for the kick here. I know it sounds crazy, but he's going to jack up and try and kind of, he may be trying to make this. Probably some type of little soft safety here, chopping on the 2, putting it near the 8, coming up the right rail with the cue ball. Trying to use maybe the 8 and 9 as blockers. And Mika, speaking of him, he was one of those players, and there's not many through the years that can kind of manhandle a tournament. He just has that ability to, when he won, he just a lot of times didn't let his opponent get to the table a whole lot. And as many great players as we have today, I think there's still just a handful of those types to really just from one match to the next just kind of dominate. And there's where a look at Mr. Weber will kind of go with what you said. Over the ball looks a little like Candela from Italy, who's also in good form.
Yeah, I have to say, I saw him walking around earlier this morning. I thought it was Candela. And then I saw, hang on a minute, he's on the main table. And then a closer look.
I love Fran, and not to be a crack on Fran, but I think Mr. Weber's a little taller, maybe about 4, 5, 6 inches. Another player, Candela, who's had some results since he entered America, warming up, great tournaments. I'd say warm up, but really some events setting up, this U.S. Open. All right, tough decision here, Michael. If you cut at it, you could scratch off the 4 on the upper right. Safety's not so easy. I think most would push the 3 below the 5-9 here, just hit it full and let it come down table. He's going to play it thin. I didn't think that was sitting that well, but that may be another one of those shots I was talking about. Something like that's going to come up later in another match. Wants to get a feeling of the run of the cue ball. I think Weber should go for this long rail bank, trying to bank the 3 by the green 6. Try and get the arm going.
Yeah, he's not really been thrown much opportunity, so sometimes you got to make something happen yourself.
Looks like all matches in progress now.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, I think they've resolved the electrical issue.
And it's amazing, what it takes to set one of these rooms up. And even though, this crew is incredible, masterful in that regard, still how little things change from one venue to the next, even if you come back to the same venue. I think he is going for it. No, he's going to play the safety. Underhit it a bit.
Yeah, and he's had a couple of safeties and misjudged them already, so why not try something different there? But obviously he didn't see it that way.
Yeah, and usually when you're really nervous, it goes to one extreme or the other. You either can't pull the trigger that much, kind of underhit everything, or it's quite the opposite. The blood gets flowing and it's hard to slow the stroke down. With this shot here, you don't want to baby too much. I don't think anyways, you may involve the 9. I think if he puts a little speed on this, he kind of goes by the 9 between the 8 and 9 back for the pink 4 up the table. But you're going to roll this in the corner, trying to play like a 2-way, just in case he misses. No, he's going on the side. Oh, he is going in the corner.
Just so frustrating for Weber. He's just had nothing to go at for the whole match.
I kind of get the feeling he's played in this U.S. Open before. The more I look at him, the more I think about it. I think I've seen John in this building before the last couple years.
Maybe it's because we're so involved in the game and know so much about its history, Jeremy. But when you come to the US Open, I always feel there's a different sort of feel to it. You can almost feel the history in the room, and everyone knows how long this event has been around and the great players who've won it and the great matches there have been. And it's always in the air throughout the week.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when it comes to the history of American pocket billiards, I mean, the U.S. Open, of course, is the highest title, but most of the players around the world, even many former World Nine Bowl champions, just kind of consider it the cream of the crop. Maybe because those Efren Reyes is, you know, on the names, and Nick Varners and all the great players through the years.
Well, I know living on the other side of the world and growing up there back in the 1980s and into the 90s, it was the only nine-ball pool event I'd ever heard of, was the US Open.
Yeah, well, I think also, it's a real feather in the cap for anyone not from America also, because, you know, if you look at the long list of winners, it took a long time, and it was few and far between for foreigners to win this event. And that shot right there will show you, even on day one, how difficult these pockets are, and as they should be here in what I think is the major of all majors.
Yeah, the first 12 US Opens were all won by American players. So finally, in rack 6, John Weber has potted a ball. Now, can he somehow turn it into winning a rack? The chance is there.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just got to, you know, settle himself. Got to have a little speed control here. That way he doesn't get too thin on the 5 with the 6 on the bottom rail. Okay, he's going to get a little awkward here on the purple 5.
Seems to be decelerating through the shot, not getting through it properly, and it's the ultimate telltale sign of nerves.
Yeah, and, you know, when I talked to some of the top players, and, you know, a few of them that hadn't been here before, Jacob Watson was one of them, the one playing Kazakhstan. He asked me any advice, and I said, well, when it means the most, you know, you kind of try to be accurate instead of just kind of swinging the cue, understanding that's the most accurate overall. And so, oh, nice shot there. Nice recovery. So it's kind of the same even for the players that are down the line a little bit.
Let's be fair, it would be no disgrace for Weber to come here and lose 9-0 to Francisco Sanchez Ruiz. We see things like that happen in the early days of these big open events all the time. But boy, won't he feel a million times better if he can pot these last few balls and make sure that isn't going to happen.
Yeah, and get on the board, you know, somewhat in style here, right? Running a nice rack, making some nice shots. Looks like he's getting a little more tuned in. Gets this one down, he should get on the board.
Yeah, and you don't want to be patronising or anything, but let's be fair again. For him to come out here and even win a rack against a player like FSR on the main table at the US Open, it's going to be one of the highlights of his life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be close. Yeah. Just not a whole lot of forgiveness.
Well, you could tell from early on in that visit to the table, it was going to take a lot for him to finish the job, looking as nervous as he was. But he had done most of the work. And now it seems as though it's all going to be in vain. So the prospect of a whitewash will still be alive. Abdullah Al-Shamari, though, has averted that. He's won the 5th rack to close to 4-1 against Carlo Biado. That's on table 2. This is table 1 we're watching. But later on in the week, of course, table 1 will become that main arena, which looks very different to this and will be really fitting for the final stages of the US Open.
Yeah, I think the World 9-Ball Tour is just made the anticipation of all these huge events just grow and grow, and I think the US Open here in 2023 is going to be the climax. I think we're going to already have pretty good crowds. I think the practice session yesterday was great, and I think later in the week we're going to have really good crowds in here.
Well, unlike any of the previous racks, John Webber did at least get a chance in that one, but he wasn't able to see it through, and so Francisco Sanchez Ruiz can now start to see the finishing line coming into view here. He leads 6-0. Emil-Andre Gangflo, young player from Norway who we've seen get some very good results this year, has lost the first rack to Jani Sikkanen of Finland. Konrad Jusashin now 3-0 up on Elvis Rodriguez. Robbie Capito has taken the first couple of racks against Jason Robichaud of Canada. Wenan Tan 3-2 up now against Abdullah Al-Katan. Ko Ping Chung is a 3-1 lead over Lawrence Thomason. Corey Jewell, former champion, 3-1 against Eric Roberts. Dennis Grabber with a 4-1 lead over Keegan Badur. And Chris Reinhold, former American Mosconi player, 2-0 up on Joseph Dino. Mika Immonen has a 3-1 lead against David Johnson. Back to the action here, and it's dry.
Yeah, didn't quite get the sound of his normal opening of the rack, and therefore a dry break. And Mr. Webber back at the table. Yeah, I think he did all right running the balls in the last rack. I think it's been a couple safeties overall that he would like to have back. Maybe a little chip on the one here coming behind the two with the cue ball. Oh, we might get to see a fun one here, Michael. Big draw stroke. Something that FSR really excels at. Distance and power.
And Shamari's just banked the 9 to get back to 4-2 now against Biado.
Didn't ever expect that. There wasn't a whole lot of angle, and he tried to create some angle to make sure he got by the 6 and just got a little more out of it than he expected.
So Webber back to the table. On the one hand, this time he arrives into the chance having at least potted a few balls in the previous rack to get himself going, but also, of course, he's got the knowledge that I think really the nerves did catch up with him in that previous rack. Got to put that memory behind him now, because this is another chance to open his account.
Yeah, he probably really should play it in the other upper right pocket. That kind of brings the cue ball down the right side a little easier. He can do it from this corner as well. Just a little light. So have you thought about it much on who you fancy this week? I mean, Michael, you're starting to really know these players' games, right? And more about 9-ball every day. So you can see a player trending or someone you like to win the event.
Yeah. I always find it hard coming to any tournament not to tip Filler, because just when he plays well, you just wonder how he's ever going to miss. Of course, he's former winner of this title, youngest ever winner of it, I believe. And he has won a big event within the last few weeks. So, but am I going for him? Having just said I find it hard not to.
Well, I think like the bookies back where you're from, I think they put him as the favorite usually in the event. I think it's just.
I'll tell you who I'm going to go for, just to stop you going for him, because I know you always pick an American. Player who's having a really good year, and now just wants a big title to cap it off. Wouldn't it be something if Skyler won this?
Well, he really likes where his game's at. Even in his losses last week in Connecticut, we're in communication and just didn't go his way on some things. And he's real honest with me as far as, hey, I dogged it or I didn't perform. But he likes his chances. I like the other American, of course, SVB. It seems like he's just been in great stroke. Just things haven't gone his way at the right time.
I think we need to have a rule when we're doing our pick at the start of the week that you're not allowed to pick American players.
Okay, well, maybe second. Let's see. Non-American. Let's see. I'll tell you, it's the type of sport, man. When you're mentally in a good spot, things seem to go your way. You don't get bothered so much. So watch out for Morris Newhausen. And you mentioned the name earlier, Game Float, right? And the performances he's shown us here lately. And I say it all the time, that age around 20, whether it be 18 to like 22, you just never know when they can really turn a big corner, and no one really notices it so much until you see him win the event. So I think he's a dangerous player as well.
If Neuhausen did win, he'd be even younger than his great friend Filler was when he won this US Open. And speaking of players who are good buddies, I mentioned him, Skylar Woodward, a few moments ago, but his great pal Billy Thorpe, you were telling me, has got himself an injury.
Yeah, and really starting to play, get back into form to where he's having great results. He's playing really well, and I've been in communication quite a bit. That one's going to slide in. Cue ball's got to come a little bit. But yeah, last night he was going down to practice, decided to take the stairs for a little exercise instead of the elevator, had a little slip, and has a nasty sprained ankle. So we'll try and figure out what's the best going forward for Billy. And here you are, Mr. Weber.
Well, you know what? I was only thinking at the start of this rack, what Weber really needs is something like this to happen, to get a chance where it only involves potting very few balls, and in this case, it involves potting the minimum number of balls, because I think actually trying to run out 7, 8, 9 in a row might be a bit much for him, the way he's feeling psychologically. This, though, is just ideal for him. It's one shot to finally get a rack on the board. And that's what he's done. Well done, John Weber. It was only one ball. It was sitting right over the pocket. But to him, that is going to feel like a magical moment. And he's averted the whitewash now. Francisco Sanchez Ruiz looked like he was going 7-0. Instead, it's 6-1. And we'll see Weber breaking in a moment for the first time since the very first shot of the match. Carlo Beato has won the 7th rack. 2021 champion, now 5-2 up on Abdullah Al-Shamari. Elvis Rodriguez has won a rack. 3-1 down against Conrad Yusashin. Well, it's actually just gone 4-1.
Another dangerous player, Conrad.
Yeah, and another good Polish player, Wojciech Szewczyk, has a 3-0 lead over American Adam King. Ko Ping Chung now 4-1 up on Lawrence Thomason. Dennis Graba going well, 5-1 against Keegan Badur. Chris Reinhold now has a 3-0 lead against Joseph Dino.
Yeah, I think Chris, I talked to him a lot. Feels like he's probably playing his best pool, even though he hasn't competed. He wanted to get away and get his game and his mental back and really get in the best place before he started playing the big tournaments again.
I saw him actually on the way in here this morning. He was practically banging down the door to get in and start practicing, him and Tyler Starr. They're both just desperate to be on your team, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tyler's really starting to come into his own, and all that hard work, I think, is starting to become a little more natural, and it's really shown. He played an incredible Texas Open, just a real high gear, one of those types of tournaments where he just kind of manhandled the field, like I was talking about with Mika earlier, and Tyler, he's in here to win it.
So, scratched off his only previous break, has made a ball this time.
Yeah, put a little more into it that time, too. That's nice to see. Maybe relaxing a bit now they got on the board.
So did we get your pick in the end? I'm going to go for Woodward.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a non-American that I just feel like is wants it so bad, was close not long ago. I'll go with Ko Ping Chung. I just think he's just going to show a ton of heart, He never gives up. I think he's in great form. And I think he likes it here a lot, too, as well. So it's going to be no rail and surrender, ball in hand. He came in from behind. So if you're new to 9-ball, after contact on the lowest number ball, you either have to pocket a ball or drive the cue ball or an object ball to a cushion.
That will be continuing a really good year of success for Asians on the World 9-Ball Tour if that tip did come through. Ko Pin-Yi at the World Masters, and Bang Jin-Hu in Spain. Philippines, of course, winning the World Cup of Pool for a record 4th time. Speaking of team events, Ryder Cup coming up this week, and I know you and I will be glued to it when we're not in the booth, and then on Sunday when the event's over we can enjoy the singles. But will you be watching that with a bit of a Moscone eye? Is there anything you can learn from that, or even about the way you might see Zach Johnson captaining the side?
You know, a couple years ago when Stricker was in there, I paid attention to a lot of his interviews. I actually tried to reach out to him for some advice, but of course, just separate worlds and a busy guy, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, you know, I like to hear the interviews from the players, and you know, the good thing is I think more and more today than ever, the golfers are a little more honest about some things, you know, with some feelings and stuff like that. I'm not saying they were bad before, but it's easy to sugarcoat things in professional sports. But yeah, 100%. Not only that, I want the Americans to win, and it's amazing how often through the years the final day of the U.S. Open was the final day of the Ryder Cup.
Well, this year the US Open will be over the day before, so we can enjoy the singles to the full before heading away from here.
Yeah, the actual year I won it. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I finished second that year. Johnny Archer beat me in the final. That was the same day of that big comeback by the Americans. I believe it was at the Country Club.
Yeah, Brookline,
yeah.
99. But also, in the Moscone, obviously you've got pairings and you're trying to get good chemistry between the players you send out together. Now, obviously, that's a huge part of the Ryder Cup as well. Do you think players can watch how partners gel in the Ryder Cup and learn anything about it that they can take into the Moscone? Or are the sports too different for that?
No, not at all. I think it's more of like, don't be so conscious of trying to learn it. Just watch it and see the feelings you get. You know, kind of, I think that does do a little bit to the players. It's almost like seeing people win after all the hard work. Just makes you want to work a little harder yourself, and you can see kind of the joy of a victory after all the hard work, and then there's nothing better than that in sports.
You think of Ryder Cup partnerships over the years, the likes of Ballesteros and Olafable who played together and were so successful, and I always think of Parnevik and Garcia who teamed up in that one at Brookline actually and just looked so comfortable with each other straight away. There's just that magic that you're hoping to find with your pairings, and I think back to the friends we were talking about a few minutes ago, Woodward and Thorpe. I remember particularly in the COVID Moscone at Coventry, the two of them, you felt they really wanted to win for themselves, for the team, but also for each other because they had that kind of brotherly bond between them. If you can find that and you could bottle it, you could win the event on the strength of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you want the right mixture to when, you know, emotions are high and going well, that you know how to keep that and still keep your perspective on things. And, you know, one of the toughest things in professional sports is to, you know, enjoy that win, have those emotions, but then be able to get right back in there and go at it again. And that's a big part of the Moscone.
Well, back to this match, and good shot there on the 8 from Francisco Sanchez Ruiz, setting up straightforward 9. Lost the previous rack, but he's won that one. Now he's just 2 away from victory. That's 7-1. Again, for anyone who might not be that familiar with how these big events work, it is double elimination early on, so Webber will not be out of this tournament. If, as seems inevitable now, he loses, he will then go to the loser's side. And obviously the earlier you go to that side, the more matches you have to win on it to try and get through to that single elimination towards the end of the week.
Yeah, and Webber and FSR both will play another match today. So we'll see more from both of these players.
Yeah, and if Sanchez Ruiz does close this out, he'll face another American in the next round, because he'll face the winner of Michael Jednak and Max Watanabe. Jednak leading 3-0 in that one at the moment.
Yeah, really dialing in that speed on the break. Going to get a bit of a difficult 2-ball just because of where the 3's at. Certainly want to play some type of position after trying to knock the blue 2 in. Red 3 a little covered up by the 8. Good thing for FSR, the pink 4's upstairs with it. Oh, that's a beauty there. Really nice.
People often say defending a big prestige title like this is harder than trying to win it in the first place. Now, as someone who's never played at top level in any sport, that seems unlikely to me. I would have thought if you'd won it and you have the confidence, plus you've got it ticked off, surely it would make it easier. Now, you can tell us from experience. How did you find it?
It was a funny thing. I was maybe a unique situation. I kind of didn't put much pressure on myself. At that time, my father was dealing with brain cancer and kind of going through a lot of things. I almost didn't even make the tournament. But, I don't know. I think it's something that, you maybe have a few more responsibilities. You'd get talked about a little bit more. But I think it comes down to form. I think it's not that big of a deal trying to defend. It's just hard to do. It's hard to win one, right? So all those players that have won 2 in a row or 2 of these period got to feel pretty special.
Sanchez Ruiz looking to go back-to-back here, and he's looking for a better outcome and getting position on the 5. So work to be done. So he looks to get to the hill.
Yeah, and I think if there's anything that FSR takes away from this, some good things, but the cue ball speed has been off at times.
Weber hardly got a look in early on in terms of having something to go at, but the last few racks had plenty of chances. Abdullah Al-Shamari, meanwhile, over on table 2, nearly putting it up to Carlo Beato. Was 4-0 down, but he's back to only 5-3 now.
Yeah, in each of his last 2 games he's won, he's had dry breaks to get Carlo right back to the table. So he's got to get that break going if he's going to overcome Carlo Beato.
The other thing you need to know if you've not watched much 9-ball pool in the past is that Jeremy has this supernatural ability to watch about 10 matches at once and keep you up to date on them all in great detail, and he's just shown it again there. Meanwhile, that was concerning from Weber. Missed that one by a long, long way.
Yeah, I think the players really get inspired for the U.S. Open. I mean, why wouldn't you? But, when it comes to the real details in the event, they always know the conditions are difficult. The setup's always the best. Of course, always taken care of. I know better than the Matchroom team. So. Must not really be, someone that fancies the jump shot that much, because definitely most would jump at this. Pretty good effort. A little off angle here with the side pocket kind of involving the cue ball's path. or easy path. He's got to not only knock in the 5, but get an angle to get from the 6 to the 7. Probably keeps it pretty simple here. He's overcut this, and the timing was definitely off on the swing there. And I think more than anything, of course, FSR with a great mind for the game. I think tactically him and David are two of the best. Jumps at the ball great. Of course, breaks the balls really well. But the last 6 months or so, it's been just a miss from nowhere that we don't expect. I think that has slowed FSR down. Carlo Beato has missed a really easy 6-ball in game number 9 there. A little fortunate to get the snooker, but it may not help him. Draw the, kind of stunned it. Drew the ball. Going to end up with a little bit of an angle. I think Abdullah's gotten pretty unlucky there. He jumped the 6 in and ended up right behind the 8. So maybe another jump shot coming here on table 2.
Yeah, looking to get to 1 behind against Carlo Beato.
And it's amazing how the pool, like we always say, the pool gods, right? But if he happens to knock that in and gets out and makes it 5-4, you know, kind of the break might change. That's seems like it. You keep grinding and not making mistakes. Momentum changes and a little bit of luck with it. Not much change here on the main table, though.
No, absolutely not. And Weber, who got no chances early on, had plenty of them in the last few racks, did take the easiest of them with that 9 over the pocket to get a rack on the board in the 7th, but he's lost a couple in a row since then, and Francisco Sanchez Ruiz is on the hill at 8-1. Conrad Yusashin was looking strong against Elvis Rodriguez, but Conrad has been all shook up by a comeback from Elvis. It's now 4-3.
Yeah, it starts on day 1 here at the U.S. Open for Michael.
I think I was quite restrained. I mentioned that match involving a guy called Elvis about 3 times before I made a song pun. I think I need to be applauded for my restraint.
Yeah, or a good cover-up until you could come up with one. I don't know which one.
Probably more like that, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Well, I had to wait for him to win some racks.
There you go.
Robbie Capito's winning plenty of racks, all 5 so far against Jason Robichaud, Winan Tan, closing in on victory 7-2 against Abdullah Al-Katan. And Sanchez Ruiz right on the brink of victory here. He needs just 1 more.
I'll tell you, Abdullah jumped that 7 in. Had a tough shot on the 8. Missed it. Ooh, Carlo missed the 8 back. Kind of watching that match a little bit. Of course, we're lucky to have all the best views with the monitors and whatnot. But for our opening round matches, I believe that was one of the ones that we could be talking about here in a moment.
Jacob Watson is charging back against Alexander Kazakis, now only 1 behind at 4-3.
Well, he's a very good player, and like I said, I think he's reigning U.S. Amateur Champion, which is a nice title, held every year there in Florida, coming up in November again.
A couple of former Moscone Cup players going along nicely in their matches. Chris Reinhold 4-0 against Joseph Dino, and Mika Immonen, one of the most experienced Moscone Cup players of all, now 5-2 up on David Johnson.
Yeah, I think Mika was always one of those players, of course, see the table quickly. He was super talented. Always seemed like he was kind of in that gear to win the tournaments. But I think now, a little older, so many great players. I don't think he can look to try and hit that gear to win tournaments. I think it's got to feel a little more like a grind for Mika, and it'll never be that much for him. That's just not him. But I think to get the results he wants, he's got to get a little more of that feeling.
Both Mosconi Cup captains are now in the room, Jeremy. Don't know if you noticed your opposite number just walking in there.
Well, I knew he was coming in. He got in late last night, actually, keeping a track on Ralph. But a great guy, and it's going to be a lot of fun these next few months till Alexander Palace. It will get very, very serious, though.
Yeah, Ralph Eckers, captaining the European team, looking for 4 in a row.
Nice hit on the 2 rails on the back side of it. I don't think he's going to get the snooker, so a wide open 2 ball to get that 9th and final game and maybe get a little rest before round 2.
Very possible that John Webber has just played his last shot of this match. His next will obviously be in much more anonymous circumstances, let's say. But at least he had his moment when he potted that 9 ball. Potted a few others as well, and at least felt he was getting involved in the match after he hardly got a look in up to 6-0. Certainly 5-0 anyway, he hadn't had a chance. Not sure if you updated it, Jeremy. I certainly didn't. Abdullah Al-Shamari did win the 9th rack to get back to 1 behind against Carlo Beato at 5-4.
And Carlo made a couple mistakes in that game. Just made another on a safety. So, and Abdullah really gets up for the matches where he's labeled an underdog, maybe because he feels like he's just not that much of an underdog against anyone. Really knocks the balls in.
Well, just under 12 months ago, Francisco Sanchez Ruiz was the last man to win a match in the US Open here in Atlantic City. That made him champion, and he's the first player to win a match in the 2023 staging. He defeats American John Webber by 9 racks to 1.